Okay, call the meeting to order. Please rise for the flag pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any discussion on the agenda?
Move to approve.
Kelly, move to approve the agenda and Jordan seconded. No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Jordan made the motion to approve the minutes and Louis seconded. Any discussion with the minutes? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Petitions, docket PC 081822-1 to consider the petition of Heather and Andrew Wabshall in regards to the following conditional use permit. And we are going to start with Olivia. You're on.
So I did come up in April when I first started, but for the,
Speak into the microphone. There we go.
I started back in April, but I think a few of you were missing from the meeting. So my name is Olivia Stransky. I'm the newest planner for the planning department here.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's been a good 5 months.
We'll be gentle on you then.
Yeah, take it easy on me. Right. So the petitioners are Heather and Andrew Wabshall. They submitted their petition to build a new residence on a site of less than 40 acres in the Ag Natural Resource Conservation District. Their existing parcel's approximately 15 acres, so they're proposing to split 10 acres off for their new residence and then leave a remaining approximately 5 acres. They're looking to split it down close to where their driveway is now, and I'll show some pictures of that in a bit. But they're proposing that 2 of the grain bins and then an accessory garage go with the new parcel for the new residence. So this is just an overview map. It's in the Elba Township. It's right off of County Road 24, and the existing parcel ID is there as well. It's right, it's in a red rectangle. You can see that just south of the city of Elba on 24 there. So this shows the proposed parcel split. You can see in red is the new parcel, and then the green would be where the existing residence would remain. We approximated with GIS about 10 to 12 acres for that new split, depending on where the exact survey line is at the time of surveying. You can see here, there are some prime soils on the site. Based on GIS analysis, it would become about 37% of the total new parcel would be prime soils. So that would be underneath the 40% requirement with the zoning ordinance. And you can see the purple line is going to be the proposed new driveway location, and then the rectangle is the proposed building site. So this is the site plan that staff have prepared. Let me see if this, I don't know if I can point this, but right to the east of the proposed driveway is an existing field that they'd like to remain in active agriculture. And this is the applicant's submitted site plan. It's a little bit hard to read on the screen, but they do have an arrow pointing to the active cropland that they do farm currently. They rent it out to a farmer, but it's in active agriculture use. And then the approximate parcel split line is again over on the side by the existing driveway. So here are some pictures when I went out and met with the property owner. This is looking southeast from the existing driveway towards where the new parcel split would occur. And in the overview map on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that yellow arrow pointing at where the angle of the picture on the ground is looking. So you can see the 2 grain bins there, and then the accessory structure that would be on the new parcel if that split were to occur. So this would be looking directly south at the new access point. This is the existing field drive that they are proposing to turn into the driveway for the new residents. And then on the left-hand side of the picture, you can see that active cropland there. This is directly on the building site itself. So it's looking south, but it gives you a relative position. Some of the building site is open, and then behind where I was standing in the picture, there's a little bit of woodland that would be a part of the building site. You can see here, this is part of the woodland that if this were approved, they would use as a portion of their building site. And again, this is just a different angle, but it's looking at the northeast, looking towards the northeast of the building site. And this is the site access off of County Road 24. We did reach out to the county highway department. They did submit comments that are included in your packet tonight for consideration. The petitioners did go to Elba Township meeting. Elba Township indicated support of the project at their 7/14 meeting. So staff's recommendation is if the planning commission should consider all materials and testimony before making findings that support their decision. Staff analysis and draft findings support granting the petition as a CUP. And should the planning commission decide to approve the petition, staff have drafted 6 conditions for consideration. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Anybody have any questions?
We talked a
Yes.
little bit about removing some trees. I can't say I went through those last 2 pages really closely, but the trees that they have to harvest, would it be on more than 1 acre to require the harvesting
I think
permit?
they're gonna talk about, that's a separate, the timber harvest, that's not part of this petition.
No,
No,
Oh,
the,
it's
the
not?
timber harvest is just a different discussion.
that's the language I could discuss on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry. No wonder I was confused.
No would be the answer.
Anybody else have any questions? You're just trying to trick her already.
There is an
No, I
existing-
got
hard
it. They
time
said
on her
they had to
first
take
day
some
here.
trees.
There is an existing home there now.
There's an existing home on the western part of the parcel, yes.
What's the fate of that home? Is it just gonna, that'll be continued to be used too, or?
The petitioners are hoping to sell that to their son. And they are here tonight too.
Any other questions for Olivia? Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Petitioners, would you like to get up and give us each, please list your name, address, and
My name is Heather Wapshall. I'm at 13029 County Road 24 in St. Charles. My son Lincoln is here. He's hoping to buy our current place. Sorry, my husband can't come today. He's at work. So he knows all the answers, but I'll try to answer any questions that you guys do have. What we were thinking is we would like our son to buy our current property. And part of the reason is we'd like to have him closer and build like a more handicap accessible home for us in the future. We did have my husband in a wheelchair for a few months after a motorcycle accident, and we thought, well, this is not going to work for us. Our current home is not handicap accessible. And then our son is also in the Army and he can be deployed at any time. So we thought if he was close to us, we could help him out and watch the place too. We wouldn't be disturbing too much. We kind of picked a spot on our property that it's seriously just some half dead trees. We picked a spot where there's no flooding. I mean, there's some rainwater that comes down below, but it wouldn't affect this property. And we thought it was far enough from some of the other like outbuildings. We essentially would keep the integrity of the land. So that's why we did pick that spot. And like I said, it was more for us just to have our own little Wabshall compound with our son so we can enjoy our grandkids someday. But yeah, we thought it would work best for all of us as a family to be a little bit closer, help each other out as needed. So
Anybody have any questions for her?
Is there any livestock on it?
no, I wish. We got some chickens. My girls got some chickens.
That's livestock. That's
Well, yeah,
livestock.
they got 19 chickens, so we get about
There you go.
19 eggs a day. But other than that, no.
You'll be able to just share the well then.
We're hoping to. I mean, if we can't, then we'd have to obviously dig that with a septic.
No reason why you couldn't, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we
Septic
could-
system, you know, you-
Yeah. I mean, if we're gonna dig, we can dig all at the same time, but we would hope to share as much as we can.
The well is good. It's good use of it.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful property and we'd like to stay. We've just frankly outgrown our home and like I said, we know that it's not handicap accessible. So we'd like to think about that for the future. We didn't think we'd have to think about it when we were in our 40s, but we did.
Anybody else have any questions for her? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
I need a motion to open the public hearing.
That motion.
Second?
Mike moved to open the public hearing and Jordan seconded. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is open. Where are we here? If anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, please step forward, state your name and address and what you'd like to say. Kay, how are we on the interweb? Anybody out there? Thank you. Second time, anyone would like to speak for or against the petition, please come forward. Speak your piece. Now's the time. Third and final time, if anyone would like to speak in behalf or for the, or against the petition, please step forward and speak what you'd like to say.
Motion to close public hearing.
Mike motion to close the public hearing and Louis second it. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Opposed, it passed. Okay. What are your wishes?
Mr. Chair, I will move that we adopt the findings and conditions so expertly developed by Olivia and recommend for approval to the board.
A second.
Okay. Kelly made the motion to approve and Lynn seconded it. Discussion. I would like to say congratulations for not taking any tillable land out of the thing. I mean, you know, I saw what you did and it's, you know, I'm glad to see that when you don't lose any tillable land. There's not much of that left in this country. Anybody else have any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say nay. The motion passed. You have permission to do that. Now your next step is to go to the county board. It will be brought up in front of the county board on Tuesday, September 13th at 9 a.m. That's when the county board, all we do is recommend approval and the county board has to approve it.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay,
My husband That one's the beginning of the school year. Is that just here?
Yes, and it's usually it just goes in the consent agenda and they just throw everything in there and nod their head and it's done. But once in a while,
That one of us do need to be present. Is it recommended? Okay.
in case there's a question, they may have a question for you that we didn't think of. All right, thank you. Zoning ordinance update, timber harvesting. Who gets this one?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Megan Cabley,
Megan.
planner. Yep. Can you guys hear me okay?
yes,
Fantastic. Kay is going to pull up a quick slide presentation. To preface the discussion on the update to the commercial timber harvest, we have been working many months, as you might know, on changing to an online permitting program through OpenGov. A part of that process was to really dig into each of our permits and the workflow that goes with processing each permit. It was actually a really great exercise for us to not only look at information we're asking for, but what is the ease and clarity for applicants to be able to apply. And we called out the timber harvesting permit because some of the wording in the ordinance we thought could be improved. And so that's what we'll be looking at tonight, are some recommendations for improvement, frankly, not only for applicants, but for staff as well. So go ahead and hit the next slide, Kay. So in general, you have the changes in front of you in the packet, but the summary of that would be, you'll notice that we're adding "and environmental services" to all of the planning department references. We'd like to further clarify the ordinance language and also call out where to locate those performance standards within the ordinance, because it's pretty tough. If you've never seen that ordinance before, it's pretty tough to navigate your way through it. We'd like to change the language from liable to responsible per Stephanie's recommendation. And then kind of a bigger one was to remove the requirement to follow volunteer state best management practices. We thought that was a conflict just in the spirit of requirement versus volunteer. In the new language, we're using the term encouragement rather than a requirement. After talking with the DNR, we found out the DNR even uses it as volunteer and not a required best management practice. And then finally, there are grammatical changes and corrections that you'll note within that document. Go ahead. So first off, we'll look at 6.9 in that commercial timber harvesting permit section. The first red correction is to add environmental services, but then you'll note right after the word department, we begin with a statement, the focus of Winona County Natural Features Overlay District. And it goes on to describe what the heck a natural features overlay district is. In the original language, it didn't really call that out. And so we actually used definitions from earlier in the ordinance itself and just repeated it here. We felt that this was the right place so that when you're reading the ordinance, you know what the natural feature overlay is. It also calls out in that next sentence, an additional goal of the overlay district is to protect natural resources for their public benefits. These resources include surface and groundwater, riparian, groundwater, native plant communities. So that takes that definition and gives it a little more meaning then. Why are we asking for a timber harvest permit? Well, we're asking for that to protect natural resources for the public benefit. Then it talks about which natural resources we're looking at. And then finally, in that statement, that last sentence, starting with the Winona County Planning and Environmental Services Department, this is a brand new statement. And we're using this to take out the requirement that I'll talk about next. So I'll just read that one in full. The Winona County Planning Environmental Services Department encourages applicants to utilize the Minnesota DNR's Sustaining Minnesota Forest Resources voluntary site level management guidelines for landowners, loggers, and resource managers when designing the management plans required for project approval. So note two things in that sentence. We're encouraging applicants, and that it is a voluntary, by the very title of the document, a voluntary site level forest management guideline. So we felt like we took out the conflict that'll show you in the next slide of shall follow the guidelines. So we're encouraging them to follow the guidelines here. Okay, let's bump to that next slide and we can show where we removed it. So the old language that we're recommending we strike states each person or land occupier engaged in timber harvesting shall follow the latest VMPs found in that state guideline. And be required to follow the procedures in Chapter 9, the access and drives. We felt we could strike that entire section because, number one, we're adding it above in 6.9. We're removing the requirement to follow voluntary state guidelines. And then secondly, if we have specific site concerns, we can call that out as a required provision in the actual permit. So the process is we receive a permit, we go on site, we take our site visit and then share that with the Soil and Water Conservation District, and they send us their soil plan, their soils plan, and any concerns they have about slope or water crossings or soil type. And then we incorporate that plan into the permit. So really it's much more efficient because we're addressing site-specific activities. You know, if we recognize they need water bars on a road, then we'll state that in the permit. If they don't, we won't. So I hope that was clear. We're actually removing it from 9.15.3, and we've addressed it in that previous slide on 6.9. So I believe that last slide, go ahead and go to that next one, Kay. Yep. So if that was clear as mud, I'm ready to answer questions or continue the discussion on why we have brought you these suggestions tonight.
Questions, discussions?
Just for my own educational purposes, it sounds like the DNR doesn't have a required procedure for compliance, and it's up to the county or.
Well, I actually got on a call with our local guys at Lewiston and then a regional forest manager so I could kind of couch our approach to timber harvest. We are one of 2 counties in the state that have timber harvest permits. The DNR, if we didn't issue a permit for this, the DNR would not. It was really interesting to kind of see where their level of involvement was in the process. And so certainly that has also affected the way we are looking at our ordinance because those volunteer best management practice that came from the DNR, they do not enforce those. Those are volunteer. So that's why we wanted our language to match that a little bit better.
So what are the other 85 counties doing?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I don't know.
So why wouldn't we consider following the majority and just getting rid of the whole entire chapter?
I don't know the back history, but our Bluffland, harvest on our Bluffland slopes have caused problems in the past. And I'm sure like Eric or folks that have been around longer, Lou could give a little more background on why it came to pass.
Okay, so we're part of the Richard J. Durham Memorial Hardwood Forest. And the Forest Service, I know, actually harvests timber in state parks. Maybe it has something to do with the Forest Service.
or the forestry department on the state level.
Okay, it's curious.
Well, it kind of feels like we're watering it down by taking out a requirement that we had previously had. But if you look at it from a practical perspective, you can't really require, I mean, you can require them to volunteer. So I don't really, I mean, I'm okay with it because I don't think we're really watering it down in practical terms, because it's a voluntary DNR requirement anyway, so I'm okay.
There is a permit process for our county.
Right.
One of the important permit processes is involving the SWCD. And I feel like that is kind of key in getting their input on any red flags that are that we should know about out there.
Mr. Chair. I wonder, as you read through it, the Soil and Water District, would be nice to get all their input when we can. As Jordan and I know, when we put a new culvert in, we got to deal with that issue as well for hydrology. But how available really are they? Is it something that if I apply for a permit, well, what kind of waiting process would I go through? Or do they know that they're partnering with us? And what
Oh, yeah.
other resources? Do they have adequate staff? I want us to understand the permitting process, which only one other county has, is that timber is a commodity that can be utilized to everyone's advantage. It's not destruction of environment every time we cut a tree down. Okay, it's a resource that's harvestable, just like a crop. It just takes a lot more years, right? So what I want is a user-friendly application process. Like, for example, what's the cost? What's the permit cost?
$75.
Okay, which is very reasonable, but
Right.
most, quite a few landowners don't even know the potential of their forest or what they have. And a logger will come in and say, hey, you know, you've got a lot of oak or walnut or a combination or whatever. And the first thing out of the landowner is going to say, well, you're going to help me with a permit probably. And they may or may not. I don't know. It depends on who they are. But whoever that might be, I want this process to be obtainable in a reasonable amount of time and be useful, you know, for our county to be competitive in the logging environment.
Louis?
My question would be, is there other places that have the permits that there would be a model to look at? Whether it be Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois? Are there other permitting processes of that to look at? If there's, somebody may have already invented the wheel.
Well, I feel solid about our process itself. I think over the years, we've tuned into the amount of time that we can spend, which isn't a lot. We've essentially done our best, and we've involved SWCD, which with each and every permit, and that turnaround is pretty quick because most of these guys wanted to harvest yesterday, and so we try to get that permit out 2 weeks, up to 30 days, depending upon if the site is accessible. But usually, most of our permits are in and out in a 2-week time period. The permit process itself is available online for anybody to look at. It's pretty straightforward. We're just trying to ask those questions that Soil and Water would want to know about, and then ask them for a simple site plan, a site map.
Megan, I'm curious, the name of the second county that requires a permit in the state.
I don't know. I think it was a northern county.
I was guessing Cook.
Yep, that was coming to my forefront is Cook County. I'd have to look at MCPESA's, which is the county planning organization group. I'm not sure if Kay has any knowledge about any discussions in MCPESA about other permitting structures for timber harvest in the state, but
The goal
I
with,
don't know.
with this permit is to kind of release the stranglehold of, language that doesn't dovetail well with the words volunteer plan with the DNR. We feel like we've got a good permit. It's a cheap permit. It hasn't been raised in 5.5 years. But I'm telling you right now, one of the things we get a lot of complaints about is timber harvesting going on without any scrutiny after the fact, when there's mud all over the township road or into the driveway and down and toward the house of somebody across the street. So in the 5.5 years I've been here, that is one of them that we get complaints about. So having just a little heads up or just a little set of eyeballs from SWCD and our department on it, I think is helpful. But we don't want to make it complicated or overly restrictive for business owners of timber harvesting firms.
This is the first place that my eyes went were the crossing out the chapter 9.7 access drives and access. One of the key pieces business most were like access roads go hand in hand with timber harvesting. So by divorcing this language, I think it helps the process. And I did have a problem with that particular issue myself once on a timber harvest that I dealt with. So I haven't heard from constituents that there's concerns with our timber harvest permit, and there's nothing in here that I have any concerns about it. It makes it easier for planning and zoning. It's not being any more restrictive.
We tried to look at everything when, and while I'm up here, I hope you'll forgive me if I can brag a little bit on both Megan and Olivia, because they've been really working hard. Megan for 18 months with the Open Gov permitting system, and Olivia has just made leaps and bounds. I swear she can quote whole sections of the zoning ordinance already. But Megan has been very observant as she's been entering things and kind of going through each permit to try to, clean things up where we can. And we haven't had a chance to do this for a pretty long time. So with one petition tonight, we thought this might be one to just tighten up a bit. So thank you. I'll be available for questions.
It does make the language clear.
Oh, that I admit. The only question I asked was why have it at all if
Do we need to take action on this?
we're one of two in the
Actually,
entire state. They have hills in Wabasha County. They have hills in Houston County. They have,
I can field that question.
Thank you.
okay.
I would suggest not take, so if we want to send it to the county board as this is, then you would initiate the process. We would start a public hearing, all of that. I think the original plan had been to get kind of a handful of ordinance amendments ready to go and then do that. So unless you have changes or suggested revisions, you can maybe vote that this looks good to you. And then we'll just set it aside and have it ready so that when we talk about some more going down the road, we can add them all together for one package to initiate the process, which triggers all those fun timelines that we added to our zoning ordinance.
Well, I would move that we just make a preliminary
What she said?
approval of this.
It looks good for now.
Yeah,
Support it?
yeah.
Leave it alone until we're
Yeah.
ready to deal with more ordinances.
Yep.
Was that a second from your mouth or was that?
I'll second it. I think
Okay.
I like the language to take
That
the intensity
simplified
out
it.
of it.
Yep, it simplified
I
it quite a
mean,
bit.
required is problem. Vincent was reviewing it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of language like that. And even the DNR doesn't require those types of things. So in this case, I think simpler is better, milder language is better, and you'll get more conformance if it's practical.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed to the motion? Say nay. The motion pass.
Thank you.
Approve of your things and we're gonna put it on a shelf for a while. Speaking of on the shelf, what's happening with the tabled one? Nothing for a while yet? Just
What's happening with what?
the tabled.
Stanton, wasn't it?
Sand pit
Yeah.
with the
The
sand
one
bar.
down in, Homer.
We've received no new information.
Okay.
So it's up to them to proceed.
Yep, I was just curious.
I think
They're working with the DNR?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Board of Adjustment, no meeting.
No, I did want to let you guys know though that My Energy recently had a meeting and they're now moving to cap the systems that they approved to the size of the customer's load. So that would mean no one will be overproducing and selling electricity on their portion of the grid.
Okay.
So solar.
No more megawatts, no more.
Not on My Energy.
Okay, so the one by Stockton, then that. filled
That's
them up or
theirs
whatever.
though. So they basically, they're moving
They
to
can
have
still
the
do it, but
monopoly
the,
on
oh,
selling electricity.
Most of ours are sell.
Yeah, most of us sell, but it's pretty common for co-ops to do that.
alrighty. County Board, Steve.
The county board approved a conditional use permit for Trenton Ashton, Jacobs and Stephen Ray Jacob. And also for the Freeman, Allen and Freeman Detweilers, both of their CUPs. So
Okay. Anything else that should be brought forth at this meeting? If not, motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Kelly, Mike, seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Don't say anything. Okay.